Terra, so good to see you.
I'm here, but I'm
I
gonna step
love
up
it.
because we're having a fire alarm.
Let's go.
Oh,
So I'm gonna go muster and do what I have to do here at the hospital, but I'll be back. I'm just gonna leave
okay.
it on. I
Fair
miss you.
enough. It's so good that I get to see you every now and then.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. We'll let some more. Oh, we already actually have quite a
Give
few
me a
people
minute.
here. So that's great. But we could give it another minute or so for people to join in, and I can introduce Maydee and Terra. So excited for today. Thank you so much for doing this. I always have this moment of like, it's so amazing that this many people continue to show up to talk about, learn about, think about trauma, right? Like, it's not an easy topic. It's very tempting to just not ever want to look at it even, right? But that's not how we do things in Worcester. We're ready. We do the hard work. We're willing to go there. And I think it's so powerful when people are willing to deal with the dark, unpleasant, yucky stuff. It benefits all of us. And I'm so delighted to have my friend Maydee here today. Maydee, I probably already like gushed all over my love for you, but definitely you are one of those people that from the very moment I got to like get who you are. Mad love. You're amazing. And I'm not the only one who has mad love for Maydee. Maydee ran for city council in 2023, really building her community reputation and rapport. And most recently, she is hi Jen, to 2024 Erskine Award recipient. Amazing. And of course, you use that platform to continue to lift and raise issues in our community to make sure that everyone is included in prosperity for our city. We can't kind of do what we've been doing and ignoring people that are on the margins. And you are one of the best, loudest, most vocal, most articulate voices for people on the margins. And we need more of that. We continue to, try to marginalize more and more people. And knowing that there's people that aren't going to be okay with that and are going to speak up every time that happens you can't underestimate the power of that in this community. It's so powerful. And here we are again with another sort of threat. And I know you may want to mention what's going on and talk about people might want to show up at city council tonight, because here again, we continue to target people that are already been harmed.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about poverty, it's such a classic trauma in that the people that are victimized continue to get victimized and blamed for their own victimization.
Mm-hmm.
It's another one I was just looking, the American Academy of Pediatrics decided that it was an ACE, but not across the board. And I feel like our culture doesn't want to acknowledge the harm done by poverty because we cause it. And that's gross, right? But I've read some things where people were like, we're not going to consider poverty a trauma because, there's lots of people that live in poverty that are fine. And yes, maybe that is a truth somewhere, but that idea of we don't want to acknowledge the harm, I feel like is part of the harm. So I'm happy to just turn it on over to you and mute myself. It's so great to see so many people here. And I know that you've brought your colleague Terra on today, and you can talk about how I'm sure she's amazing because she's your colleague and she's at WCAC and she gets what this is. So I will let you do that. Your slides look great, but if you switch it to the slideshow view, then that will be even better. And I think that we decided that Maydee they'll pause at whatever point, but I'll also be monitoring the chat. It's hard to monitor it while you're presenting. You can't really see it. So I really will be quiet now. Thank you, Maydee.
Thank you so much, Amy. Always a pleasure to be here and work with you and learn from everyone that's here in our space and collaborate and look for further collaborations because I love to collaborate with people. Yes, my name is Maydee Morales. For those of you who don't know me, I am the director of the Resiliency Center at Worcester Community Action Council. I'm also a community organizer around, I have lots of passion around food security and housing and affordable housing and ensuring that the voices of the voiceless are heard. So whatever platform I have, whatever table I sit at, I always going to speak from a lens of equity and justice for folks in our community. So, and so today at 6:30 at City Hall, someone has put up a petition to, it's another chance for you to let your voices be heard. Someone has put in a petition in order to mandate that anyone who ever runs for an office has to prove their citizenship. So folks who are migrants and new Americans in our community who are able to run, such as our two of our city councilors would have to also prove that they were US citizens. So a way of not doing inclusion, right? And to not be inclusive right then and there. Terra Oliveira, who is with us here today, is the director of the Resiliency Center. I'm sorry, she's the director of the Financial Empowerment Center at the Resiliency Center for Worcester Community Action Council. And so I've been learning lots of things from her in the deficiencies in the wealth gap, in the deficiencies in income and economic stands of a lot of our people. So we do a couple of different things here at the Resiliency Center. And so we wanted to talk a little bit to you about that today. We definitely see folks who are in poverty and scarcity and who have a history of trauma and oftentimes are being traumatized. So Tara, can you put it on slideshow? And yes, we do have a section for question and answer at the end, but if that doesn't work, you can feel free to ask questions throughout. And Amy, put your hand up. Amy is monitoring that. Put it in the chat, any of those ways. So,
So I got a couple screens going, but it says, Amy, it says my screen sharing is paused. I'll try again.
and Tara, if you want to say a few words while you're doing that.
I just wanna.
Maydee, I'm so happy you're here today, and thank you for that introduction. That was awesome. And I'm glad to see the rest of you too, but how fortunate
I see
are...
you. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Just feeling really fortunate as an audience today to learn from you, to learn with you, to be here. And clearly we've got a big turnout today because this is such an important topic, such a big topic. And you're just the person to be leading us on this.
Oh, beautiful. Kelsey's also at Worcester Addresses Childhood Trauma, so she's going to help.
There we go.
Oh, you got it.
Is that
Perfect.
better?
Yay.
Sorry.
Kelsey's also going to help me with the chat. And we did a couple months back food insecurity. And all of our trainings are always recorded. We'll share the link for that recording as soon as it's ready. And we really do encourage you to share this content with people you may be working with. It feels like it's so helpful and important for people in health and human services to really understand what people that we're trying to help are coping with.
Mhm. All right, great. Do you want to go ahead and push the other slide? Thank you. So we know that from the US Census from 2018 to 2022, and we know that the numbers are even higher now. In the city of Worcester, 37,000, over 37,000 people are living below poverty level. Out of the 83,000 that are in Worcester County. And so so 18.3% of the people that live in Worcester are living below this poverty level. We know that it takes a lot for people to come out and ask for assistance. And so we welcome those folks to come in, and we try and divert the divert the trauma that people are suffering through. And we're listening to them, and we try to figure out ways to not re-traumatize them. So there are a lot of ways that can you do the next slide, please? There are a lot of ways that our systems that people need to access for help traumatizing, are re-traumatizing to folks. So we know that you are all also experts in this. And so we wanted you to share some examples of where clients are re-traumatized by the different processes while I talk about this. And we can definitely, acknowledge those while they come into our into the chat. So people have to retell their stories over and over again, because there isn't like a common app where people go into request services. We know that if folks who apply for Mass Health are often eligible also for SNAP benefits. And so it is the same kind of documentation that you need, but yet people have to go to two different offices, two different spaces, and retell the whole story and provide all the same kind of documents. And so this perpetuates trauma for folks. Having to wait a really long time until you are in crisis to be eligible, right? So what's the dumbest thing that we tell people? You have to get court papers in order to be able to qualify for RAFT, which will then save your rent, your housing. But when you're ready to move there, now you have an eviction in your repertoire. And so you can't, another landlord won't take you, because the system made you go into this process where you had to have an eviction going before you could move. Waiting to hear on decisions. So this has always been the case. But I think especially in our shelter system, this has gotten so big, right? And so painful for providers, right? When you're working with a family and they're on the streets or they're in their car, and you have to say to them, yeah, let's get all this paperwork done, but then I'm sorry, but it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks for you to get approved, right? And then Lord knows how long it's going to take for you to find a place. Recently, I was working with a woman that was referred to us by Edward M. Kennedy. And this was a pregnant woman, 36 weeks, with her partner, who were sleeping in a car, and we could not get them into placement. I always talk about how we need to do, oftentimes we need to be advocates for our clients. And so, we had to do a lot of advocacy. There were like 5 of us working on this family, and, sending emails and back and forth, not things that a family who is living in their car would have ability to do probably, or want to be thinking about, right? So some of the other ways that you guys are in the chat talking about re-traumatizing people, yes. A shortage of staff who speak different languages. All the documents are challenging, especially when you're homeless. And then the lack of access to technology to apply for services. This is something that I know during COVID, this was really helpful that we were able to do things online. But I think some of our agencies and some of our programs have gotten too used to this and too comfortable with this. And so we're not assisting a whole plethora of people because they don't have access to technology, right? And technology is not the best. I always like to tell the story of my mom when we first gave her a cell phone. Anything we would text to her, she would only respond with, "I love you. I love you." Right? She couldn't text anything else, right? She's much better now, but still, right? People have different levels of ability. And still to this day, like she has to register for medical appointments. I have to do that for her, right? She is not savvy on that. So our systems can often be a place where our folks are re-traumatized. Changing policies to dramatically impact benefits like the end of COVID, emergency, and reduction in SNAP benefits. You know, this is a great example of a COVID era resource that really helped people and showed that people had less food insecurity as a result of these increases to the emergency, and then they were taken away. Okay. Yep, we can go on to the next slide. Again, a couple of more examples of how our system re-traumatizes folks. I don't know if you guys know now, but the RAFT applications are so easily timed out. They don't explain the whole process. Everyone is out there on their own to do this. And, you know, like I always say, for people who do this on a regular basis, and this is your job, then it's great, right? It's a really easy system for you. But somebody who is wondering about where their next meal is coming from, where they're going to sleep tonight, where their kids, you know, how they're going to put a roof over their kid's head for tonight, or are they going to sleep in that car? They don't have time for all of these bureaucracy, right? To have to be going through this. We do RAFT and SNAP application for our folks here. And oftentimes we will have to do a RAFT application 4 times before it gets approved, you know, but we have time to be on it, to be looking at it, you know, while the person is trying to survive, get their kids to school, you know, do they have enough food? Do they have enough diapers? All of these things. And the fact that a tenant and landlord application has to match in the background in this system, it is really, it's a little bit concerning to me, right? Because people don't know that. So they think they've put in their information, they're all set, right? But really their application doesn't start the process until they've matched. And oftentimes it's a number that you have to give your landlord. And if the landlord puts 1 digit in wrong, that's it, right? The applications won't match in the background. And you think something is going through, you know, is being processed, and it's really not. So I've shared, and so many barriers, yes, so many barriers. We know that there's long wait times, both for DTA systems, and I know they're working on it. They're a great partner in community, and they're working on it. We have recently become very involved with the Mass Health Ombudsman, and she is like our go-to about anything for mass health applications, right? Because that application is still like 35 pages long. And when you call, you have to like wait forever, language access, right? All of these things. So I'm going to stop there now, and I'm going to let Terra bring us into some of our strategies and some of our understanding and some of our foundation for the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Maydee. Yeah, so I think what I want to build on is kind of the poverty mindset and what living in this environment can do to you in a science-based way, and then a functional way that affects your day-to-day living. So I noticed that in the invitation it said 1 in 3 children in Worcester are living in poverty, and nearly 1 in 5 adults in Worcester are living in poverty. And we know that that's really just the tip of the iceberg. That's, as someone mentioned in the chat, that's the eligibility, but near poverty is poverty. We serve people above the poverty line all the time. We see people at experiencing the cliff effect all the time because that number is artificial. So it's really much more than 1 in 5, and maybe more than 1 in 3 children. So we're going to talk about mobility mentoring and an organization called Empath in Boston throughout our presentation. Sorry, I flipped forward. All of the Resiliency Center, but actually all of the staff at Worcester Community Action Council, all like 130 of us, are getting certified as mobility mentors as a foundational approach in how we partner with community members and clients that we're working with and supporting them in pursuing their goals. So I wanted to, this is a really short video, I think it's like 2 minutes or so, that they use a science-informed approach about what trauma, and specifically what living in poverty does to your brain, because that's gonna continue our conversation on how we navigate all these systems that we've set up and what that does to us. All right.
In this video, we're going to talk about the stress response, and we're going to build on our knowledge about the hand model of the brain and executive function skills that we just touched on. What I want us all to think about right now is what would happen if you encountered a bear. So most likely, if you saw a bear that you weren't expecting, you would be panicked. And what would be your first reaction? Likely run, hide. Some of you might fight. And many of you in your head are probably thinking, that is my fight or flight response. And you're exactly right. We're now going to talk about what exactly happens in our brains when that fight or flight response kicks in. So to remember what our brain looks like, right? We have our brainstem here, our limbic system, and our prefrontal cortex that all build on each other. So you've encountered that bear, and in that moment, your fight or flight kicks in. So what happens is your limbic system starts firing. It is firing and telling your body and your brain that it is in danger and that it needs to enact to stay safe. So it starts pumping out adrenaline and cortisol through your body so that you are the most efficient, fast version of yourself to get away from that bear. So it's firing, and what it does is it flips your lid. So your prefrontal cortex and your executive function skills in there have gone.
Can you all still hear?
Online is not helpful to you. So what happens is you are now so fast and efficient that you run and you get into a place of safety. You close the door of a cabin you found somewhere, and you take a deep breath and you take in your surroundings, and your prefrontal cortex starts to come back online. And slowly as that happens, you realize you have a cut on your leg that you didn't notice before. So you figure out what I'm going to do about that. And you think, what are the next steps that I need to take? Because now that you are safe, you are able to make decisions in context about how to get out of harm's way even further. Whereas before, when your lid was flipped, you didn't have access to those kinds of skills because what you were focused on was survival.
There's so many pieces of that that resonate with me about how we see clients and how we created the Resiliency Center to fill that gap in how people were wanting to access our programs. So I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit, but what keeps resonating is when I am safe, when I am stable, when all of my needs are met. So that's a lot of what we structured ourselves to be. We have navigators who are all trained in this approach, who are the first face of anyone reaching out to the Resiliency Center for help. And that first approach is, let me respond to your immediate requests. Let me get you stable so then we can talk about what comes next. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but your lid is flipped and it's probably not your best day. That's when you're walking into our office. And any of the systems or many of the systems that require a really high level of executive functioning to successfully navigate through. And we've set it up to be that way. And it's really difficult when you're in crisis to do that. So start small. One of the things that we've done is think about what this means for our basic interactions with clients. The fuel assistance team is thinking about how are they responding to clients to let them know what they're missing on an application. It doesn't just say, you're denied, sorry, no. It's an executive formed approach of, we have almost everything. We need A, B, C. Please let us know if you need help. Simple things like this, just incorporating calm waters and co-regulation. This is going to be okay. We're here, we hear you, we see you, we're going to figure this out. And that's what our navigators are doing to get people safe and stable, and so that they're in a place where they can begin to think about what comes next when that doesn't feel so overwhelming.
I think it's such a great decision that the agency has made that all of our staff are being trained in mobility mentoring. And so that is, clients will and people will have that same treatment mentality from the moment they walk through our doors or they get on the phone with someone, right? So we have made this an agency-wide decision to be aware of these things and the folks that we're working with, and then how do we make the space safe? Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah. So just a really quick high-level snapshot of some of the ways that the Resiliency Center has started working with people. We're holding community clinics, and we committed to doing them on a monthly basis. So we host them here at 18 Chestnut Street in the basement, and we invite over 30 community partners and we ask them to be ready to provide help right there. So clients, it's not showing up and putting your name on a list and waiting for a phone call. It's showing up and doing a raft application. It's showing up and sitting with DTA and fixing an issue with your food stamps. It's community legal aid is there. There's a focus every month. It's free. We just wanted to make it as simple as possible. So we're doing that monthly. Navigation is kind of our key approach of when anyone calls the agency and say, I need help and I'm not sure what it is, we have a plan. And they go through an initial assessment with our experts, at this point I'll say it, who deal with that first pressing need, and then after that's settled, offer a bunch of other resources. We run a volunteer income tax assistance program. We did over 1,400 tax returns free, which meant that people got their full refund that they were owed. And also they had the paperwork that they are often required to provide to access everything else. We have a SNAP outreach coordinator, Blanca Davio, who is excellent. If you don't know her, she's going out in the community full-time, meeting people where they're at, doing applications on the spot at the WRTA hub. She's helping with appeals, any questions, she's available. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but we're running the first guaranteed basic income pilot in central Massachusetts, which is we're really enjoying. And we've spoken about mobility mentoring and financial coaching. We offer it one-on-one. That's probably what I would highlight the most out of it, but it's everything that you might think of: budgeting, saving, student loan consultations, credit card debt plans. And sometimes we're even able, with clients who engage with us, to help them clear some barriers. Sometimes it's really simple, that it just takes cash and the problem is gone. And in some cases, we're able to do that so that someone can move forward.
I think that those processes and resources that we have available are definitely strategies to respond to the trauma caused by our systems. I love our coaching and that one-on-one client-focused, client-led process, where, you know, some people come in and are like, oh, you're gonna tell me, you know, what my budget is, here's what I put in and here's what I take out. And we're like, no, let's evaluate, you know, your whole life. You'll see one of the tools that we use in a little bit. So I think that for us being experts, and I absolutely love our team. I call us the elite team. Don't let anybody else know that, but that's what I call us. They're being masters on the online process for people, so that then people don't have to go and visit an office, or they can even do that. They can even do this over the phone with people, virtually with people, meeting people where they're at, right? Going out to, being a SNAP outreach partner, and going out in community and being at that's my favorite, right? At the bus depot, at the bus hub for WRTA, right? And there's like 15 to 20 minutes between buses, and our ladies are doing raft applications and SNAP applications. Like, there's my bus. Okay, don't worry, we're almost done. Boom, right? Like, talk about meeting people where they're at, and really helping folks with what's on par right now, what they need help with. And, you know, with our rental crisis here in the city, this is our goal, is to be able to say yes to people and to help people out. Community navigation. I say that everyone in our team has an expertise, right? So we meet, we support each other. We have a very supportive team of each other, and we meet and navigate people's situations. If we don't know, another one of us would know. So helping people navigate these systems and not leave them alone. We do help with the SNAP Gap, and trying to do a common app for people. And then the benefits cliff, right? The people in community say, oh, why don't they just get jobs, right? Well, guess what, right? you get a job, your income goes up a little bit, you get a new position. The amount of income that you get does not match what you lose, right? In SNAP benefits alone, people will lose $300 easy a month for food, and then they're not making an extra $300 a month. So they do fall off that cliff. So we have tools that we can utilize in order to help people to look at where they would fall off a cliff if they've been working with us, or if they are, then what are some of your resources? The fact that sometimes there's no shelter without advocacy is also something that we have to get the Central Mass West Justice Center involved often. They're also a great partner in community. I already gave you the shelter access example of the pregnant woman and how we were trying to work through that with her. Next slide. I think this is you, Tara.
Yep. We just wanted to give you a little bit more information about, in depth about what's happening in the Financial Empowerment Center and what are some of the things that we can do so that you have greater awareness and can send us your people. So like we were saying, the navigators can often utilize some of these tools to get someone stable right away. If someone calls in, they're 3 months behind on their mortgage, they have a notice to quit, they're behind a month or two in their rent, they have a lien on their house, they have a shut-off notice, any of that, they can just go with. They can also do sometimes some of the other odd basic needs relief when that's a small barrier. That's just that. They can also make a referral to, we can nominate people for a $600 0% interest loan through Azuda. Doesn't impact their credit. They can't get denied for it. If they make a late payment, it's okay, as long as they just wouldn't be able to take another loan until that first one is paid off. But it's there for people who are in a vulnerable situation. So they can do that as well. Coaching, as I said before, that's kind of like the backbone. And what we learned really quickly when we launched was that we needed both parts. You know, we couldn't talk about next month and next year with someone who'd flipped their lid and they were just worried about this week. So when someone is in the mindset and they're interested in it, we have one-on-one coaching. That's very rare. We don't do workshops. We don't do groups very much. We've just seen the impact of that. And the scope is very different than what you might get at a bank. We're talking not so much about this is your income, we are, but it's not just about this is your income and these are your expenses. It's a lot about how do you feel? Like, what's your financial wellness? How much are you worrying? Are you confident that you can make your monthly bills? What are you going to do in an emergency? What are your natural supports like? So yeah, I think we'll talk a little bit about that coming on as well, but it's really important to us and it's kind of our signature that we offer one-on-one. Just like if you were at higher income, you get that opportunity. For us, it's low and moderate income. It could be one time, it could be periodically, it could be ongoing. We also do student loan forgiveness consultations. We have a lot of people come with high credit card debt, just asking for someone to weigh in on and some choices on that. We can also do a referral to a credit builder loan that I like a lot. So even if someone would be turned away from a bank from opening a checking account, because yes, that is still happening. I work with banking institutions to have them open a checking account when that's possible. for anyone, even if at that time they are not able to open a checking account, they have agreed to override that when Resiliency Center makes referrals to a credit builder loan that will improve someone's credit over 12 months. When they make, it doesn't cost anything up front, but they pay a bill. And at the end of the 12 months, every month, all the credit bureaus have been notified that they have an open line of credit, that they've made on-time payments over 12 months. And in the end, actually, all the money that they've put in there is theirs again. So they've tricked themselves into creating an emergency fund. We're also piloting matching those funds 2-to-1 for some clients in our guaranteed basic income program. So they've improved their credit, they've made it more likely that they can open a bank account, they've created a savings, they've gotten in the habit of saving monthly, and that we've tripled it, essentially. It's a little snapshot, but really, I guess the message here is it's individualized. We have people who come in and say, I just want help on this one thing, or like I just want to buy a car, I just want to pay down my credit card debt. And then we have people who achieve a goal and then set a new one and keep going forward. And it's all in scope.
So thanks to some ARPA funding, was from the city of Worcester Community Action Council has the first ever guaranteed basic income pilot in the in Central Mass. So we have two cohorts, 26 and 26 families, who meet with a financial coach, empowerment coach on a either bi-weekly basis or monthly basis, and they receive either between $250 and $500 a month, and then towards the end it starts to tear off the last 3 months, and they work on what their goals are, what it's supposed to be one goal at a time. Oftentimes people start in the big goal, and then it comes down, we break it down with them, and then they start one goal at a time, and in order to be able to get to that one big goal or objective, we have of course everyone walks in saying they want to be a homeowner, right? In order to start their generational wealth. And we have had about 3 or 4 people who have gotten guidance and support from a financial empowerment coach, and have been able to purchase a home. We've had people who have paid off accounts and bills, and but the main thing is that they are the ones that are guiding the process, right? And they're at the wheel, and we are simply there to support them, to walk along with them. Sometimes we hold their hands, sometimes they walk on their own, and we are empowering people to be independent and to have that self-sufficiency in the end. There are many people who have just about finished the first cohort, and they are willing to stay on because they see the benefits of the coaching and the experience that they've had through the process. So it's very inspiring, when you hear people's stories and they have $600 due a month per credit card or something, and all of a sudden they get them all what's the word, Tara?
Consolidated.
Thank you. Consolidated. See, that's why we're a good team.
On a safe debt management plan.
On a safe debt management plan. And, now the payments are $300 a month. So how does that reduce that trauma? How does that take people out of that flight or fight response? And how to help them to be able to process new things and moving forward, right? Okay, next slide, Tara, that's you.
Give some hope. This is just that we normally get asked the question of like, what are you tracking how people are spending their money? And yes, we are sort of, but it's really not the main objective for us. Really, we want to prioritize financial wellness and financial confidence. And so on a monthly basis, we do capture categories, and I can tell you that across the board, it's being spent on basic needs. It's household goods, it's food, it's transportation, it's diapers, formula. But we ask every month how much the participant worries about meeting the household's basic needs over the month. And so we're tracking that for each person and how that changes over the 12-month period. And so I'm really looking forward to getting a snapshot of that data of how has cash and how has coaching affected that financial confidence and that level of burden over the 12 months. Almost, I would say, I believe everyone in the first cohort has pretty much already met at least one goal. And frequently we hear that the cash is being used to pay for the necessary action steps in achieving many of those goals. So getting a license, paying a babysitter, catching up with rent, dealing with an item in collections because they'd like to go and buy a house. Yeah, I think the momentum that we're able to see over a year is really inspiring. They get one win and we're able to cheer them on and then give them the financial resources to keep going every month. And they're doing that.
I have to unmute myself. So we wanted to talk a little bit about our foundation and our philosophy. We've mentioned mobility mentoring. We've mentioned that we use this as a foundation, as a philosophy. I've mentioned the bridge to self-sufficiency, goal setting. So all of these are parts of this training that we're all taking, where we are really partnering with participants and providing them with the support and the skills and the empowerment to be able to become self-sufficient, right? And really have self-sufficiency and really have those the recognition for the work that they have done, no matter how little or how big it is, right? A lot of times we think we can only recognize when it's really big and out there in the public, right? Or when you meet that one goal of graduating from the university, right? From community college. But in actuality, right, we look at each and every step of the way, and what does that take for that person to have to do that? And how can we support them, or how can we guide them in order to get there? And we also recognize each and every one of those. So one of my favorite tools here for this process is the next slide, which is the bridge to self-sufficiency. So folks will self-determine where they are in terms of, on this bridge, in terms of family stability, so housing and full family support, their well-being, physical and mental health, their networks, financial management, debt, education, and then employment and career. So they will determine where they are and where they want to be, right? And we will choose one goal from all of these. The client will choose it, they will determine it, and then we all start working on it. And so, yes, you're looking at the whole picture, but you're also looking at the client at one thing at a time, right? Like baby steps. And then having, again, the support, the network. Who are the people that you can count on? Who can babysit for you so you can, having talking through for those things with people. So we don't really, somebody's asking if people need help with clutter. And so we're not experts in that part. Let me say that way. Clutter and hoarding. We are planning to start working with that population. So we're looking at what that looks like, but at the moment, we're not experts on that. We would probably find other assistance for people with those who are under that situation. So. Okay, Kathy did an amazing trauma Tuesday on that. So we're gonna have to go look at that. So, but yeah, and it's really easy when it's broken down and then you come back 6 months later and we look at, perfect, thank you. We look at where people are, where they are measuring themselves, where they're assessing themselves, and you have given people recognition throughout. So that's, a way for people to move forward and start to empower themselves, right? Because they're in a safe space now and they're being treated non-judgmentally and they are the ones that are guiding this process. So our next slide talks about financial social work. And so this is another philosophy that we look at. Think about people's relationships with money, right? Either you have it or you don't have it. And when you do have it, when you have lacked it, then you might be overspending or something. I'll be honest, right? I always tell people this story. I'm one of those that goes to the store, and if the shirt is nice and comfortable and it's good price, I'm going to get all 5 colors, even though I only need one, right? So, but what does that say about me and my relationship with money and clothes and, my own trauma, right? So we talk to people about how money doesn't have to be scary, how you can have money and you don't have to live with the scarcity mentality. And we talk about how it makes you feel. And so that's what we focus on versus, like Tara was saying, versus like, okay, you bring in $10, you can only spend $9, right? And you have to save $3. So, and
There's no shoulds.
no.
There's no shoulds. I think there's a lot of forgiveness that starts here of like, what happened, happened. You made the choices you probably had to make, and that's okay. And you can make new ones now, and what do you want that to look like? Yeah.
Our next slide shows you kind of where we were in the beginning and what our thinking was back in 2020 when the Resiliency Center was being rolled out to community. And because of a lot of our lessons, then we are now at this space. And as you just heard, we want to keep growing. And so this is just another way of looking at all of the kind of information that we've been giving you today. One thing that we have not mentioned is that through our VITA program, we expanded that and we're doing ITIN clinics. So folks who need a ITIN number in order to file taxes because they've worked here, then we're helping people to do that in collaboration with Friendly House. A little bit of the numbers of the people that we have, next slide, of the number of people that we have touched so far. Our Resiliency Center, between our navigation and stuff, has seen over 1,500 people in the last year and a half. We've done 445 raft applications, which probably means we've helped about 1,200 people. We have 102 people going through coaching and 52 enrolled in our guaranteed basic income pilot, which great success, highest number of volunteers and free and tax preparers and tax returns done last year. So we expanded out to South County, who is also part of our agency. And so we had clinic times to do taxes out in Southbridge and Webster and Leicester at our new Head Start. So our next slide, our community clinics, which are being held on a monthly basis and now will be held every other month out in South County, but lots of community providers and partners who come to the space and can really help people. We can walk people over to them. Our next slide is our folks. And we also have a secure jobs financial empowerment. So we do have a member of our staff who is within the Job and Education Center who does the youth works, and they have a secure jobs program with families who are in shelter and living in shelter. And so they have their own financial empowerment coach for whoever likes to participate in that. And some of those families are part of our guaranteed basic income pilot this year on our second cohort. Our contact information and some links to the best way for you to refer folks is either through our coaching, our community resource link right here, the first one, that gives them a form to fill out, and then our navigators will pick it up and go through and, call them back and see what they need. We always offer financial coaching to all of our folks, even sometimes at the initial visit, food for thought, planting the seed. But if there are some folks who are clear that they just want to, talk about consolidating their credit card debt and stuff, so they can also just do the financial coaching piece. Our emails in order to reach our SNAP coordinator, Blanca Davio, is snap@wcac.net. Resiliency at WCAC.net is also a way for you to reach us. It's an email that we all have access to. And I'm good right now. So if we can open it up to questions and answers or statements. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Tara, I don't know if you want to close us off with anything else. I'd love to have conversation.
Sounds good.
That's so amazing and helpful. All of the work that you're doing, it's really clear how different it is when you're not coming from this place of judgment, right? That so many of our services, I mean, it struck me throughout my career, like if I was under the level of scrutiny that I'm expected to put people I'm working with under, I couldn't handle that level of scrutiny, right? Like if the child welfare system, when they want to come in and look in your refrigerator and make sure your house is clean, and come on, that is oppression. Plain and simple, that's oppression. And we know that it really intersects with racism, and with every other identity group that's marginalized, right? I know when I was unemployed and I applied for unemployment, I live, in the suburbs of Worcester. It automatically went to my son, like my son's school. My son's lunches were free automatically without me having to do anything. I could go and say, no, I'm all set. I can still pay for lunches. But the fact that it automatically put a help in place for me, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And I don't know that that's across the board. I don't know how that happened, but just thinking like, why don't we do things like that automatically? Why are we making people fill out 8 different forms for all these programs that ask for all the same information? Like, why don't we have a common application where you do it and it says you're eligible for this, this, and this? Like, it just feels like we do so much to create barriers. I feel like, you know, as a social worker, we have to critique ourselves and think about, wow, we're part of this problem, because here we are making our living off of judging people essentially and judging their worthiness. I loved the piece about where you have people that are looking at the applications and can tell you like, oh, you missed this or that. I can't tell you how many times I fill out a form and I miss a piece of information or get something wrong. And if I got no feedback about what was wrong with it, or nobody told me, and then I'm just waiting my 2 months to get that benefit and it never comes. And now I've got to go backtrack and figure out what the hell happened. Near impossible.
You've lost the apartment or you've gotten evicted because that was in order to pay back your rent or to do a new one. Yes, to move into a new place. There was a lot of advocacy that was done in Worcester by the Worcester Community Food Bank and around the breakfast after the bell, in order for people to automatically qualify children if you have, you know, this benefit or that benefit. Even in our HEAP program, which is our field assistance program now, people are automatically matched with if they receive SNAP benefits, and then in turn can get automatically approved for.
They don't have to provide any of their income documentation.
Right.
And it's the first year that that's been possible. We've been trying to do that for a very long time, because yeah, it's already been authorized. It's already been verified.
That's amazing. Kathy.
Hey.
Great
Well,
job.
I wanted to say thank you, Maydee, and thank you, Terra, for this awesome presentation. And something that is heavy, as I heard you all share, not just like the context of what you're sharing around trauma and poverty, but also all the different tools that you were sharing, is also the piece around interpersonal relationships and how much that deeply matters when we are thinking about trauma and when we're thinking about just doing direct service work, right? And a big part that I always think around trauma is that oftentimes we forget the piece around dignity and respect in how we treat one another, and how it's about the systems, and it's also about how we approach these conversations. Because I don't only think it's about the strategies, but it's really about the self-reflection that we do around how we interact with one another. Because yes, we can have the systems in place and all of that, and yet we can still be acting in violent ways that re-traumatizes folks just by the ways that we assume things, the ways that we talk to one another, and the ways that even when we're trying to help, we can be doing a lot of damage. So I just wanted to lift that up. And I also wanted to say that it's amazing all the work that Maydee, you're leading, because there is so much need for that kind of approach in the way that we're doing work, and in the way that we're hopefully moving to a more equitable system, you know. And the last comment that I want to make is how trauma plays a role in all these small ways. And also when we're thinking about poverty, let's bring back also the ARPA funding, for example, the fact that so many organizations, especially the smaller organizations, the BIPOC organizations, were the ones that were given the least amount of funding. And how does that play into the cycle of violence, into the cycle of poverty, into the cycle of who gets the benefits? Because if we were to invest those fundings in organizations that are actually working with the communities that we are trying to break cycles with, the approach and the equity will look very differently. So yeah, and again, thank you so much for this awesome presentation.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. I often make sure that I let people know, right, that there's no judgments here, that I'm here to help you, and what can I do? And so I also pass that on to our team, and everyone on our team is tuned into that. So yes, because we don't want to re-traumatize people, and yeah, recognize that there's a lot of trauma that people walk in through our doors with.
I also really appreciate what Kathy said too about so many, like we chunk it into these little tiny pieces and don't look at the whole person or all of the things they're interacting with. And that kind of allows us to keep this stuff in place, right? We look at like, oh, well, you need this resource, you got to do all this stuff. But so rarely are we looking at the whole person and really understanding, well, how did they get here? What happened? I'm always so struck too by the poverty numbers for kids, right? Like if that's all you've known, how are we ever going to expect, like child welfare does that all the time, right? Like you grew up in the child welfare system and then you become a parent and we suddenly expect that you understand all these expectations we have of you that no one ever took the time to explain to you or talk to you about, or how are you going to know that stuff? Those are not realistic expectations, right? And so I love that this sort of model of coaching people and being with them, like holding their hand when necessary to set goals and to cheer them on. And like, I don't know how many people that interact with systems ever get cheered on or made to feel like they did something good or something right. They get, it feels like they get nothing but negative feedback about all the things they're doing wrong and bad. I'm a sensitive person. I know I could not handle that constant barrage of like, oh, sorry, you screwed this up. We're not going to help you anymore. So it never surprises me when I find people that have just really given up on the belief that systems are going to help them, right? And her bringing up the ARPA example, like built into the system is the bias. Built in they were favoring sustainability. Who's already been here? Who already has a big track record? That's all the usual suspects, right? Like when we build this into our systems to just keep on marginalizing the people we've always marginalized and benefiting the people we've always benefited, how are we changing that? Unless we have people like Maydee, right? And Kathy, like that's what we need. And I'm so grateful that you've taken this into the political arena as well. And I think that makes a huge difference, right? It's very easy that we're all just kind of can do this in our office and do the best we can. But when you take it out and look at these larger systems and these government systems that are supposed to be helping us, that are often not helping, but really harming. And I learned a lot of new things today about like, there's so many things that you don't think of if it doesn't apply to you. And that is why, like, that's what Trauma Training Tuesday is about, like the voice of lived experience in this work. Because I learned, sort of the hard way that I did not get what I did not get until I was in trauma, right? Like I can learn all this stuff and know all this stuff, but boy, when it's happening to you, it really lands differently. Like it's such a different way of knowing. And and we have to hear those voices. We have to understand what it's like for people. It's so easy to judge when it's not you and it's not anybody in your family, not people that look like you. So just thank you so much for really getting all the levels that this is happening on. And you're right, this is the thing, we just keeps talking about it like it's an individual problem, and this individual just has all these issues, and it's systemic problems. It's the systems. 100%. Thank you, Susan. Jump in.
I just wanted to say that I've worked in social justice, health and public health for 40 years. And so I've worked with anti-poverty organizations. I've worked with food banks and all the systems that you mentioned over the years. And I've seen how they work or don't work. And what you've described and what you've presented, it really should be a model. Truly, it should be a model. That's the way it should happen. And I don't base that on just, experiences in passing. I have 40 years of being part of those systems and seeing the way they fail. And part of it is really, I think the foundation is, do you value the population you're serving? And if leadership doesn't, yeah, it's just not going to happen. But I think this should be a model. You should publish, truly.
Listen, I'm thinking about it. I really am. I think that it is a great model, and we have seen great success with it. And so I hope to be able to provide that support and service out to others in community. So, yeah. Saidi.
The mute button. Yes. Hi, Magdalena. Thank you so much for this presentation. And I know most of this information, but wouldn't miss the opportunity to be in a space where you get to be discuss it larger, like Ames said, and connect those dots with where people really fall through cliffs, not gaps, and that really is where the work is. I just wanted to point out, going back to what Amy said in terms of child poverty, how all of the systems also interact in keeping people where they are at now, and not help. And going back to the comment of, oh, there's a lot of people in poverty that actually do well. Where are those people? When are those people? Because if a child is in poverty, they absolutely know that their family is poor, that their family cannot afford things, that their family could be getting evicted, that there is no food, that they cannot get new shoes or anything of the sort for when the new school year starts. So how do we expect them to learn so that they can then pass a stupid exam to make it through high school and then college, which is supposed to be the equalizer in this country and beyond? So it is really backwards how things work. And I am glad that WCAC is really placing themselves in a way to connect all of those issues, and especially getting led by you is really such a relief and it just fills me with hope. So thank you so much for the work you're doing.
And didn't you say in the chat that you yourself kind of came out of poverty and now are working? Like, I would love to hear any insights from what that was like. And congratulations. That's, like you said, almost unheard of, right? This is designed to keep you right where you are.
It really is. But I speak for other people who are not at this table. I am an immigrant, and by that definition, when I became an immigrant, I automatically became poor. So it's coming out of that in terms of, I didn't grow up poor. I actually grew up being pretty privileged, and was able to use that, my upbringing, to then lift myself up. I'll go to college, getting a lot of student loans and still just being able to each day it's hard, each day is a fight, but really just working towards getting financially independent and all of those things that I try to also help people with, but get really re-traumatized over how systems are not designed to help.
Thank you. That's really helpful. It is true, like that sort of, you know, the piece that Peggy McIntosh wrote on white privilege. Like there's so much about knowing the codes, knowing how to talk, knowing all of that stuff is so helpful to navigate these systems. The systems are created by people that don't need the systems, that couldn't navigate the systems. I remember the woman at the top of the mental health system, Mary Lou Sutter, said, I can't navigate this system and I'm at the top of it. And like, we accept that as all right. To me, that's like, thank you for being so damn honest, but WTF, right? Like, and you're expecting people with major mental illness are going to be able to navigate these systems when you confided that you're at the top with all this power and you can't? Like, this is what we're up against on the regular with these systems of helping that were not designed by anybody who actually needs help. And that's what you bring to this work. And that's what makes it so different than the work many other people are doing, is the recognition of what it's actually like to be on the other side of the desk. So thank you so much. And Karina, I know you're going to have something great to say about this too, because you're right there with us.
I sure am. Thank you guys. I'm so happy I attended this. It makes me so mad to bring families to get help, to get shelter or food stamps or whatever it is, and they just create barriers and give them such a hard time. When I took families to get the emergency shelter, I went with my Massachusetts law book because I'm like, you got to place my family within 24 hours. And then, you know, they go traumatize families by calling DCF because they live in a neglectful environment. And it just boils my blood because these systems were not set up for the people. And this needs to be a training to the executive directors and stuff of every organization. I mean, they probably still won't get it because they're just stuck in that mindset and that privilege. Even in schools, like those teachers in that white privilege, man, trying to teach our kids. And I'm like, yo, you don't even listen to the kids. You don't even know the culture. Like, you're ignorant. So, yeah, I'm going to be sending some families to this center. I didn't even know this existed. Yeah, I'm going to be talking, Terra. I'm a financial coach too. I would love to volunteer, but I'll email you that on another note. You know, now I'm educating family on financial empowerment. Like, yo, they don't even teach us this in schools. Like, you know, savings, credit, all that. And you don't have to pay someone. There's so many scams for like debt conciliation and all that. There's so many scams and programs that help you and they don't. They take your money. So I'll be providing free workshops, y'all, in the future. But thank you guys for all the speakers. Thank you. This is amazing. And I'm happy that there's a center that actually focuses on the individual one-on-one and coaches them and empowers them so they can do that themselves and come out of that cycle. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's important. Thank you, Karina. Because it's important to treat people as human beings, right? And to not be judgmental. And, you know, I remember there was a time in my life, right, where I was 30 days away from, you know, being out of my home and not having enough food in my house and you know, cutting up that chicken a little smaller so that everybody was able to eat, you know? And if it wasn't for some people who lent me their hand and supported me, and, you know, my mom would come in and I would get home and there'd be an extra gallon of milk in the refrigerator, right? For the kids. And if it wasn't for those, then I don't know what I would have done. So, for me, it's mission, passion, you know, it comes from the heart to make sure that people get treated this way. And so that's what I pass on to those that I oversee. And that's the expectation when they come here. So, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Does it-
Something,
Go ahead.
sorry, my
Yeah.
dog's barking. I just want to ask, just the Maydee and others, what role do you think hiring people with lived experience has in fostering, like, what role does it play in the agency?
I think it's a special role. I think it, thank you. I think, yes. I think it's special for both the client and the staff person, right? For somebody to be considered an expert because of the experiences that they've had in their lives, or what they have learned, what they have come out of, how they have, you know, done a little bit of training, certificates. I think it gives people hope. I think it brings people up. It lifts them up, right? And I think the work gets done with more humility. When you know what it feels like to not be sure that you were going to have that meal that day, or when you have lived in shelter spaces, you know, when you've paid your rent instead of paying the electricity because you want to make sure you stay on, you know, at least your rent is paid and so you have a roof over your head. And it's okay if the electricity goes out, you'll figure it out, right? But if you lost your housing, then that's different. And I'm not saying that our people like sit there and say, this is my lived experience, you know, now that you've shared yours, right? But I think it just comes from the help and the assistance and the compassion comes from a different place of understanding as to what is going on. And yes, we can be compassionate and passionate and be very helpful for people from that we're serving whose experiences we have not had, right? Because you can do that. But when you've lived it, then it's a little more special, I think. Yeah. And I can see it in our staff, right? Like they will come to me and they will advocate to the end, right? And I'm like, I hear you. We just can't help right now with that, but we can help with this maybe, right? So, but yeah, they will advocate to the end for people. Yeah.
Thinking about that, Maydee, and hearing you say like your staff are special, right? Folks with lived experience bring that experience, the empathy, everything that comes with it, the extra level of advocacy that you shared. And I've been thinking a lot about the juxtaposition of helping and also having some power to help or to support, to advocate, while also not having a lot of powerlessness to change a system as a whole, right? And that juxtaposition, and we're talking about it, around it, and I just wanted to call it out explicitly, because there are systems acting on all of us that are not acting in our best interest. They're harming us. And then we're being tasked with moving forward through it. And that's a big part of where we get into burnout and when folks are getting frustrated and not having the skills to take care of themselves because of those systems that are acting, those unkind actors, right? That aren't so helpful there. And the one-on-one work with clients and the advocacy work are the same, but they're also different, right? They're connected, but very different, and very different hats and roles are being needed to do the advocacy work versus to sit with a client and support them with the empathy and care that they need in that moment. And so just recognizing the enormous skill set that is needed to do that work. And we know that in these human services fields, there can be a lot of like underpaid, undervalued, overworked, long hours, a lot of personal investment and all of that. And so I'm also just putting that out there, just I think as like a gratitude and a thank you and an acknowledgement to the huge skill set that's needed to do the one-on-one work coupled with the advocacy. There's not a lot of roles that I can think of that are asking folks to do both of those pieces and switch back and forth outside of human services. It's constantly being asked in this field, but it's not asked. People in the private sector sell their product or do their tech services or do whatever it is, but it's a more one-directional lane. And those are two distinct skill sets that we're seeing folks really have to show up and navigate those hats. And you can be so frustrated with the system while doing the advocacy and then turn to the client and say, well, I can't bring that frustration here. Right. And so thank you for keeping yourself positive through it all, lifting your team up and supporting them through it all. We're just so grateful to have you here today and to learn more about this important work, and grateful that you exist in our community. Right. Yeah. Thank you. That's what I got.
That was beautiful, Kelsey. Thank you. Great. Yeah. It is when you are saying that too, I was thinking about the sort of the pieces of, I'm going to look for it. And if I find it, I'm going to post it on your page, but they have done studies about IQ and poverty, right? Like when you're in that survival mode, when you're trying to just get to the next thing, you straight up like lose IQ points. It's very real. And so you're struggling to make sense of stuff. And then we punish you for exactly what we caused. It's very common in all, like every trauma. It's the results of the trauma show up in your behavior and your moods and your thinking. And then we blame you for that and say, that's why we have to do this to you, because look, you're not very smart. So we're going to have to, sorry. Right. And it would happen to any of us. That's like one of the things that was so amazing about that study was like, we have this idea that intelligence is this fixed thing that if you're smart, you're smart, but it is not a fixed thing. It is very much about the circumstances you're in at the moment and at the time. And I love that Terra highlighted that and really just kind of talked about the stress level and what's happening in your brain when you're in survival mode. And then we have these expectations of you that you couldn't meet on your best day, let alone when you're at your worst. What the hell? But that's what it is. And so it's not even hard to understand why things stay the way they are. It takes so much to move that needle. And it's amazing that you're doing the so much that it takes to move that needle, because it does take advocating for transportation. I know that your office was involved when food stamps moved their office to a place that was not accessible to the vast majority of people without cars, right? And now it takes 2 bus rides, like over a couple hours to get there, and you could only go in person. And if you have kids, forget it, right? All of these kinds of things that people are able to do without backlash. And you guys are advocating, and that is so helpful because they are all connected. You can't cross town and do this if you don't have transportation. All of these pieces are really, it's just amazing how hard we make it to just exist in this city. It's not easy to live in Worcester. It gets harder by the day. So thank you again for all that you do. And it's so great to see so many people here are in this field and doing this work. And yeah, it is a preaching to the choir. And thank God for the choir though. And the choir, we got to just keep on singing it louder and louder and louder to get more people in our choir, because that's what it's going to take. People, I don't know if people get it. I don't think they understand what it would be like the empathy gap, right? That really is why we're doing this work at Trauma Training Tuesday. We really, really hope that people will have more empathy and understanding of what it's like and what people are up against. Thank you so much. I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. I know our good friend Jillian is here, who's doing this work with refugees and immigrants. That's a whole other, and she's done training before. We've had several on that. But when you're an immigrant or refugee trying to interact with all these systems that are stacked so far against you, add that to your challenge list. It's just amazing to me that anybody actually if people actually get help, it's such a win. That's so great. And that, like, you're bringing people out of poverty. What a huge win. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in or speak to any of this stuff? I know we've got Terra's from DMH. We've got people in all of these, the public library. Thank you. You guys are the best at supporting our community. We're so thrilled for that. I know Sue Lewandowski's out in the outskirts of Worcester, way out there in rural poverty can look real different than urban poverty. All of this stuff. So if anybody wants to jump in before we call it a day, we still have time.
I had one more thought. I just reviewing the chat, hearing lots of chatter about financial literacy for youth in the chat. And I've been, following some accounts and doing some financial literacy stuff for myself. And one of the things that kind of comes up in the Instagram world of influencers and all of that around financial literacy is the education that's given to women around financial literacy being in contrast to the information that's given to men. One of the things that kind of comes out a lot is women are taught a personal budget and men are taught investing strategies. And that huge discrepancy in financial literacy. And that's just how information comes across and how this is media. These are big generalizations, broad topics. I'm certainly not saying that's what we're thinking in your office at all. But it's something to be aware of, because when I started learning more about this, I was like, whoa, what is this topic? It's oh yeah, women are taught how to manage a household budget, how to budget, how to clip coupons and save money. And that's kind of the financial literacy content that's marketed towards women. But they're the same things around home ownership, around investment strategies, around the stock market. That information is much less accessible to women. Ariana, do you have a question? Do you want to jump in there? I see your hand up.
Oh, I wanted to add to that, so you can.
Yeah, hop in.
So I just wanted to add that I appreciate that those of you who work with youth really want to highlight that there is a lack of financial literacy in a lot of cases. I want to really be careful that we don't overgeneralize youth and young adults experiencing homelessness, because many do have that under their belt, but also many don't have the means to be able to live and save up, especially if they lack a support system or housing. I mean, especially in today's climate around that. So I just wanted to be clear that financial literacy is great across the board, but we definitely need to make sure that we're making it equitable. We're offering it to people who want it and need it. And we are offering it in a way that is free of judgment. And we're not saying, oh, you're not spending your money incorrect, or you're not spending your money correctly. So I just wanted to vocalize that to make sure that we are able to offer to everyone across the board what they need.
Absolutely.
I would
and I
agree to that. Whenever I hear the term financial literacy, I kind of wince a little bit, because it's just, it's not what I want. It's not what we decided to focus on, but it is really important, because it's kind of the base level of, these are the rules. And if you learn the rules, then you can do what you want with them. And that's the space that I want it to be in. A lot of financial literacy, some of the financial literacy that you'll see for youth in school systems, at banks, workshops, it is that kind of, I call it the shoulds. Like, you should do this, don't do that, never do this. And it doesn't take into account any of a person's full picture. Whenever I see that bridge tool that we use, I just love that that's a reminder that if we're talking about money, it's deeply personal. And it's your whole life. It is that first time you thought, like, I don't have money for new shoes. That's gonna come up in you. And a lot of financial literacy, like, I frame it as like how to be a good bank customer. That's not something that we created. It's like another system that's coming down on us. And it is hard to break free of that judgment. As you said, if your housing isn't within that should of 30% of your net income, it's really hard to make any of the other decisions if that piece doesn't fit. And that's just the reality that we're living in right now, is that it's hard for a lot of people to make choices within those parameters. So I agree.
I appreciate the addition. And I also just want to, because it came up in my head, but I wanted to add too that, like, a lot of youth and young adults experiencing homelessness a lot of times didn't get that head start that some other people may have had to be able to set savings, to be able to live independently. And I think that that's missed when a lot of case managers may work solely with youth, because you're seeing, I'm sure, like, seeing, oh, this is a pattern, but I think as a system, as organizations and leaders, we need to address more of the root. And I think that often leads to lack of support system, lack of being able to get ahead, lack of income, lack of resources, all of those things that really just compile on to youth and young adults, and in turn adults that go on to have that cycle of homelessness. So yeah.
Yeah, we work with our Job and Education Center that does the Youth Works process here. And we have been looking at different ways of doing that financial empowerment with the youth when they first come in. And there's clearly some youth who don't even know how to read their paychecks, right? Or know what any of it means. But then there's some that are much more advanced. And so we hope to plant the seeds that will guide them towards, that financial stability or empowerment later on in life, as they increase their income and stuff. So that is a group that we are constantly thinking about here, and how do we best meet those needs.
You all are doing beautiful work. There's no doubts about it. Just sharing this stuff in the chat with the folks here today has just been so important. I think about the community piece of holding ourselves well and taken care, and to be brainstorming or talking about these big topics with community really feels important, because it's easy for me to get stuck in my head and stay frustrated there. But here it's like, oh, there's hope here, and this is where it lives, and this is how it is, and here's a new framing, and here's a little soundbite I can take with me, and it will help me have more empathy moving forward, right? And so if I trust that if nothing else, that has value, because it has value in my own life, and I know that the awareness of the resources and the important and revolutionary, in some cases, programming that you all are offering at the Resiliency Center is amazing, right? Those benefits are above and beyond, and spreading to folks who maybe are here with us today, but maybe who are beyond the training scope as you serve your clients too. Really, really good stuff. And the intersectionalities of it all, right? That just the financial chat pops up around haircuts being a luxury, right? And that one, such an important topic. I immediately went to how you present yourself determines your wages, it determines your job, your income possibilities and earning possibilities, determines who your friends are, who you could, your social circle and your social capital, right? But good luck saying that, just good luck teasing all of that out when society is telling us that haircuts are a luxury and shouldn't be included in the budget, whatever that looks like. Car, gas, registration, taxes, phones, all of it. Yeah.
I was in a space earlier today where somebody said, you don't really need a car. Like in Worcester? Really?
Let alone if you work or live in any adjacent towns or in rural areas to try and get to work in Worcester.
In Massachusetts altogether, you don't need a car? Okay, sure.
Yeah. I lived in Worcester for 3 years without a car because my car was totaled, and then it was a happy accident. I was buying a house, and when you're buying a house, they say you can't take on any new debt. So I could not buy the car. I could not get a new car. Anyways, it happened. It worked out. It was about 2 to 3 years. And the only way that it was possible for me was because my jobs are within a mile of where I lived. And I didn't feel safe to ride a bicycle. I had a bicycle, wanted to ride it because that would have saved me a lot of time, potentially money, but the streets and the traffic and the driver education just wasn't there for it to feel safe and like a reliable method, right? And I say all of this from a place of privilege, right? I wasn't coming from a place of I didn't have a car because there wasn't enough money and I was struggling to put food on the table, and not at all, right? And so I recognize that privilege. And even still, it doesn't seem possible to me. Like I lived that experience, and it doesn't seem possible for how folks would navigate Worcester without their own transportation, right? And I had the social capital, the network, to say, oh, we're going here tonight. Okay, yeah, pick me up. Or okay, I'm gonna hop on the train. I'll meet you there, and then you'll drive. I'll meet you in Framingham, and you drive me into Boston, or whatever it was gonna be, right? I'm very aware of those resources that made it possible for me to do that. But how would I don't understand. And if you did shift work and your times were changing, your work schedule changed week to week, day to day, no, none of that makes any sense.
2 weeks ago now, I think, City Council at Tallahassee
Yeah.
did the walking for a week to work, and then there was another woman who also posted, I don't know her, but she was saying that she had to come into work in order to, from like Oxford, I think it was, an hour earlier, and then had to stay at half an hour later in order to meet the transportation. So, even those
Whoa.
systems are not. So if you have kids, you know what I'm saying?
And they get sick and need to be picked up midday. What are you doing about that?
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that also plays into like reliability of transportation. Like you might have a car, but can you make repairs on the car? Can you do all of those things? Like I'm coming from personal experience. My fender looks rough. And just going to, because I work admin, and going to work meetings or having to go and audit programs in my car, and just the look people give you, and you're just like, yeah, hi, how are you? And it's tough when people don't understand how many things go into everything.
Yeah. And some jobs literally require them, right? Reliable transportation is listed there as one of those requirements. Oh, the stigma all
And they
around.
don't pay more to require that.
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
mileage.
Yeah. And even that, good luck submitting for mileage, because you need some serious executive function skills to be able to say,
This
I
is true.
tracked it from here to there, and here's the map, or here's the print. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. I work with a lot of folks that kind of share that struggle around, well, I was here, there, and everywhere for work, but the expense report, the mileage, I just can't be on, right? And keep up with the workload, because realistically, reimbursing for mileage isn't the important part of anybody's job, but it is the important part for your household, for the budget, for your personal well-being, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I always try and do mine's round trip. That's it. Don't back and forth and add more line. Round trip, okay? If I went there, I had to come back.
Yes, it had to be round trip. There's no other options. Absolutely. Absolutely. I am putting in the chat a feedback, kind of a quick survey link for folks to complete. That helps us at Worcester Acts get some funding to continue to provide trainings like this one and other programming in the Worcester community and beyond. We appreciate your time.
Don't forget, if you're in Worcester tonight, 6:30, City Hall, come share your thoughts.
Absolutely.
I just
Thank
want
you so much. Go ahead. Is somebody jumping in? Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Ariana.
was doing the same thing. I just wanted to vocalize and say thank you for holding this space and offering this training. It was really great.
It was really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I guess we can call it a day, and just so grateful for all the people that are here and care about this topic. And we will be sharing it. Kelsey had put the link in earlier. They're always recorded. They stay free so that you can have everyone in your office watch it. We really appreciate that. And if you feel like it, Maydee and Terra, and want to send us the slide deck, we can post that as well. And then people will be able to go in and find your emails pretty easily. And if there's other resources, we like to have them be pretty self-contained place where you can go and get help and resources and find. We put the WCAC website there already. So all of that, please, keep spreading the word about these trainings, and we're just so grateful that there are so many people in our community that care about each other. It's a beautiful thing, and it keeps us inspired, because there's so much negative stuff all the time to worry about, but to live in a place where people care, what a gift. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.